Welcome to the first day of financial math. Today we're going to be doing two problems related to simple interest. So, simple interest is not really very realistic. In real life, we use compound interest, but for the sake of this, we will consider there to be two kinds of interest: simple interest and compound interest. Simple interest only accumulates on the original capital or principal, it does not accumulate on the interest already added, unlike compound interest that does. But, anyways, let's get into the simple interest formula. The simple interest formula tells us that the interest we must pay in this hypothetical is calculated by multiplying C, which is the capital or original principal that was borrowed, times I, the interest rate, times N, the number of periods. So, for example, that would usually be the time in years, but it depends on the rate that we're given. Are we given a rate that occurs annually, or does this occur every 6 months, every 3 months, every month? How often does this occur? Anywho, let's get into example one. A capital of $8,000 is placed at a 15% annual simple interest rate for 2 years. Calculate the interest for those 2 years. All right, so in this case, the capital is $8,000, so that means that the borrower borrowed $8,000. The interest rate was 15%, and that was annually. So that tells us two things. That tells us that the number of periods is the same as number of years, since it's an annual interest rate, meaning yearly. And also, it tells us that I, the interest rate, is equal to 0.15, which is just the decimal representation of 15%. And then we have the number of periods, which in this case means number of years, which is going to be 2, because it says it's 15% annually, 15% every 1 year. So, how much interest was paid in those 2 years? Well, we know that interest is equal to CIN. So, therefore, that's going to be $8,000 times 0.15 times 2. And if I multiply that out in a calculator here, I'm going to end up with, let's see, 8,000 times 0.15 times 2 is equal to $2,400, which is a lot of money, but also 15% is a pretty high interest rate, that's for sure. All right, let's try the next one. A borrower borrows $30,000 at a simple interest rate of 5%. 5 years later, she pays off the balance in full. How much interest did she pay? All right, so in this case, the original capital borrowed was $3,000. The interest rate is 5%, so 0.05. Now, I will say that it doesn't actually tell us if it's annually or monthly or whatever the case. Generally, if they don't tell us, we can assume that that means it's annually. Otherwise, they really should specify. Then 5 years later, she pays off the balance in full. So the number of periods in this case would be 5 years. How much interest did she pay? So I would be equal to the original principal of $3,000 times the interest rate, which is 5%, times the number of years, which is 5. And if I type that into the calculator, I'm going to end up getting $750. So therefore, the amount of interest she paid was $750. Had the question asked how much was the full balance she had to pay, well, then that would be the interest of $750 plus the principal of $3,000. So that would mean that the total balance that she paid off was $3,750. All right. Well, that's it for this one. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment section, and we'll see you for the next one.